All right, Roman, yeah, you can start.
Okay, all right. So good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining in for this session today. So without further delay, I'll just assume at this point in time that you have been able to set up or at least redeem the credits, get a project going. So we'll get going with the lab that we have scheduled for today, which is to just get familiar with Gemini CLI, because in the few sessions that come up later on in the season, you'll also be using this to do a variety of tasks, right, from code generation to connecting to servers to pretty much things where you require any kind of AI assistance. This is going to be your go-to tool to sort of do that. So our session today will be primarily to help understand what Gemini CLI is. So if you look at the introduction, I'm just assuming you all got the link and everything. So I'm on the first step itself, as you can see in introduction. So our goal is going to be to make sure that you have access to Gemini CLI. So primarily, while there are steps in the code lab which teach you how to install it on your own system, own laptops, if you wish, you can do that a bit later. But for now, we'll also be using or at least highlighting that we've got Gemini CLI working inside of Cloud Shell. So we'll be pretty much using a pre-installed version that comes along with Cloud Shell. Of course, it auto updates itself, so it's not that it's dated to some release. So once we have access to it, which I'm sure all of you will have, just by the nature of having created the account and launching Cloud Shell, we'll take a look at what Gemini CLI can do. But before we get to the what things it can do, which is a variety of which things are put in step number 12, if you see over here, or part, step 12 over here, of which we'll be doing a few. Prior to that, there are quite a few things that you need to know from how do we set a few things up, how do we truly customize CLI, because this is just a terminal interface that you have with the Gemini model available at your disposal. But as you know, on its own, the model can't do much. So as we mentioned earlier, how do we augment this model? How do we connect it to tools that we want to use, which are external to this, CLI tool itself? So that's where probably some of the MCP integrations come in. So how do we do all of those things? How do we configure it? How do we customize it? How do we add our own commands and all? So we need to understand that to some extent, so that later on, as we do the use cases, you will know if you have to tweak a few things, how do we do that? So primarily, that's the whole premise of what we're going to be doing today. So pretty much what it says that we'll just get access to Gemini CLI. We'll understand what it means to truly customize Gemini. So which means either via settings or via some custom commands or via even what's primarily, you might see this all over the net when it comes to Gemini CLI, which is how do we do that primarily, instruct it in a different way or tell it to honor certain rules that you want, which is via the Gemini MD file. And of course, we'll take a look at one or two big use cases, though this lab has a lot more. So we'll just go to the next step. And again, before you begin, the point again is that you have now access to a Google Cloud project. You're in Google Cloud Console, and you've got the $5 billing account. All those things are set up. Now, we're going to be primarily running this, or when I say this, we'll be running Gemini CLI, which comes pre-installed in Cloud Shell. So of course, the first thing that you need to do is, as I'm showing you, just make sure that, and what you see over here is my Google Cloud Google Cloud Console, and the Google Cloud Shell. Of course, I've enabled it, but that's right in this top corner. When you click it, a VM gets launched, and which I've seen, which you can see over here. I've kind of got it up and running. But as the instruction says, you'll see this little icon at the top in your Google Cloud Console. So if you launch it, give it a minute or so as it creates a VM, and you should ideally be having a terminal-like interface as you're seeing over here, right? So that's pretty much a prerequisite before we move forward. Okay. All right. So let's.
Hi,
Hi, Jashwant and Madhu. Your mics are on. Can you please turn it off? There should be a way for us to mute everybody in the call. So let me just do it. Except, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Roman, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So
Just
let's.
one question, Roman,
Yeah.
before you proceed.
Yeah.
Show of thumbs, how many of you were able to successfully create project and activate credits and get started with the preliminary steps? Show of thumbs, not don't have to raise your hand. Okay, so I'm assuming all of those who raised your hand are done. But use the okay, emoji is deactivated. Okay, I'm so sorry. That's fine. I see that raising hands means you have completed that step. Okay, go ahead, Roman. I just wanted to check that because I didn't ask that question before you started. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So given that, right, the third step is talking about, as you can see over here, but how do we install Gemini CLI? Now, Gemini CLI, if I just go to it's anyway an open source project. So I've gone to the Gemini CLI GitHub page. Now, right on the first page itself, or this particular README, you will see there's a quick install, and we've kind of extracted those things out. But primarily, you will need, a Node.js version. It could be any of these operating systems. The nice thing that we are doing when we're running it in Cloud Shell is Cloud Shell, of course, it's a Linux VM, but it also comes with several developer tools. So Node is already pre-installed for use. And plus, Gemini CLI is also installed. So if I go to the instruction, right, I'll come to the steps in a while, but it says if you're using Google Cloud Shell, then Gemini CLI is already installed for you. So you don't have to do any installation here. Later on, the steps which you see in this or this notes which you see in this step is primarily in case you want to install it on your laptop or any other machine. Feel free to try it out. But for now, we are going to go with the fact you've got your project set up, you're in console, you've launched Google Cloud Shell, and which means Gemini CLI is already installed. You might even see a message on top that says try out Gemini CLI, a little kind of a banner that comes up, which you may not have closed. So just going back to where I was over here, if this is where you are at this point in time, you can straight away launch Gemini by typing in Gemini. That's the command to do that. So go ahead and do that. And that's exactly what the code lab also says, that once everything you're done with, you could simply, it tells you to verify the version. So if you feel, you could do a -v or whichever one. So in my system, you're seeing a 0.4.0. By the way, is my screen and the font large enough for everyone? Looks okay?
Yes, Roman.
All right. So now you see 0.4.0 for me. In case you have an older version, if it's showing you a 0.3 something, 4, don't worry about it. There is an auto upgrade that's already built in when you launch Gemini. So don't get too worried in case it's not on the greatest version. So going back to our steps, we can confirm that there's at least a version out there, and then everything is fine. You can simply go ahead and type Gemini and let it launch. Of course, on my screen you're seeing it's connecting to a few MCP servers, which are configured and which will come to. But for now, right, ideally, you all who are trying it out along with me should be able to launch Gemini in this manner. And at any point in time, if you feel you're lost, you're confused, how do we get out? Of course, quitting terminal apps is always the most, difficult thing. But here you can just do a slash, sorry. Anytime authorize or anything happens from a Cloud Shell, please give it the right permissions and go ahead. So you can either do a /quit and come out of it. It gives you some kind of a summary. Or if I again launch, let's say Gemini, as you're seeing over here, you should be able to even do a double Control C and come out of it, right? So you can do a Control C 2 times and you should be out of it. It gives you a few stats which are not too important right now. So just like how you use any other terminal software, just be comfortable. Something going crazy, it can at times just do an escape, come out, do something, right? But feel free to sort of just try to use it as roughly as you possibly can. So I'm again launching Gemini, and this is where you should be at least along with me over here. You may see no MCP servers or nothing coming up, but we'll configure all of those things. Now, as you can see over here, few things. I may not go exactly as per the lab, but I'll just give you a few other points so that when we go to the lab, it makes sense. Now, just observe what you're seeing on the screen right now. So we are now inside some kind of a continuous loop where it will continue to take our commands or prompts. As you can see, it's already at a box where it allows you to sort of type your prompt as you want, but take it easy for now. So you can either type your message or get used to sort of even giving some pass. Now, before I get going, let me just come out of it once again to just give you another data point vis-a-vis the code lab. So in step 3 itself, you will see somewhere at the top that says, go ahead and create a sample folder, on your terminal, so that we are inside of a specific terminal, and then we start from there. So what you're seeing is it's telling you to do a make directory, and it's giving you a name. You can choose any other name you want. And then it's saying go inside of that folder, and then you can directly launch it. There's a very good reason for this. So for example, on my machine here, you're seeing that if I look at my present directory, from the home directory, which is this, I'm actually gone inside of that. So I already created, I'm there, and then I'm launching Gemini from here. Now, one thing to just keep in mind is do not launch Gemini from a folder that is maybe your home folder or from your, root folder of your machine or something like that, because Gemini CLI is actually a project specific tool or a project folder specific tool. So always be in a specific project in which you want to work. So let's say you're working on a Node project or a Python project or some documentation project or some even non-coding task, but be within those specific projects, folders, and then launch it from there so that the context is very clear to Gemini as to where it is starting from and things like that. So for example, I'm right now in the Gemini CLI projects folder. And when I launch this, you see Gemini CLI will again come up. And now again, observe what you're seeing down here. So while this is the prompt that you can provide, you will see that there is also the root folder of where I'm starting on is shown over here. You might see something different if you've gone there. Again, no sandbox. Sandbox is more like a sort of an, I would say, security shell in which we might only run the commands and not run it outside of that. Now, keep in mind that Gemini is running on your system. So by default, every tool, every utility, every sort of software that you've got on your machine can possibly be a tool for Gemini to use. So if you've got Git installed outside, Gemini CLI can actually make use of it. If you've got some FFmpeg utility installed on your machine, Gemini CLI could possibly make use of that. So again, keep in mind the context, that is what's the environment you're running Gemini CLI in. So it's your current directory, it could be the whole system tools and all of that stuff. There are enough checks and balances built in. So you might just say, oh no, how can you just run any tool? Of course not. Gemini, as you will see, will prompt you. When I say Gemini, sometimes I may just use that instead of saying Gemini CLI. So if I use the word Gemini or if I use Gemini CLI, just assume I'm talking about the CLI itself.
Rohit, quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you just hover over Cloud Shell terminal icon by just lowering your terminal window and then on the console where it is? Yeah. So for folks who are asking how to activate Cloud Shell, the icon that Roman's hovering his mouse over, that little icon right next to Gemini, the diamond shaped icon, is what we call the Cloud Shell terminal icon. Click that. It will load in the bottom, similar to what you see in Roman's screen, Cloud Shell terminal, the black terminal window. So allow that to load. And once it loads, make sure you can see your project ID. All that Roman already explained, but seems like you folks have not completely followed those instructions. So some of you keep asking. You should be able to see the right active project ID there in the prompt, and then you would run the command which Roman asked you to run to install Gemini CLI.
I could do this again just to
Yeah,
show you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Folks follow now. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm right now in my Google Cloud Console, right? So there's no Cloud Shell, nothing is started off. So as you can see over here, it shows as you hover here, activate Cloud Shell. So if I click that, that's where it goes ahead. It launches a VM. First time if you're doing this, might just take probably close to a minute, but here you can see it's come up. And the thing to note, what Abhi was mentioning is if you see on top here, if you tap on this, you'll see that that's your project name, but the project ID is that. You should ideally see your project ID coming up over here also, right? This whole thing which you're seeing. If not, that's what the step before you begin says. That just list down this particular command. Gcloud config list project. So if you just do that, just ensure that when you run this command, you are able to see that the project is set to the one that you're currently in. So where did it get this? Where did it get this project ID? This project ID may not be the one which you're seeing here on top. Just tap on it and you should see in that row under the ID column. That's important. So if it is not, then as this instruction says, you can go and set this. Even if it's set, I can just show you how it's done. So you can just say gcloud config, gcloud config set project, and what's the ID? So in this case, it's Gemini CLI and folder. If you do a mistake, it's going to just assume something, it's going to take it. If you do a typo, and then probably subsequent calls will fail. So you can just do this. So it just says updated this core project, and then you come back again to this config list project to ensure that you're able to see this, right? So once this is done, pretty much you will be in your home folder, whatever that might be. This will be your Gmail or the personal email after the home thing. So I've already created the Gemini CLI projects folder. I'm going into it. That's what the step 3 was about, that you just create this folder and you'll be inside of that, because Gemini CLI is a project based tool, or folder based tool. Now, so if I just launch Gemini again from here, I'll be back to where I was before this. All right, so we are here now. Just keep in mind that before it, or at this point, we've not given any prompts to it. But prior to even it launching and coming up in this particular state, Gemini CLI did a lot of things. There is a system prompt that is loaded. There is also, as I told you, which folder you have started it from. If there were folders inside of it, if there were files in it, it would have tried to understand what kind of folder is being started in. There could be other customization files that you've created, which we'll see in a while. So all of these things are loaded into its memory or context, and then subsequently your commands are given, right? So it's not that it's currently in like completely a null or a zero state. It knows, it's got a system prompt, which will be the basic rules it follows. It knows what folder you started in. Possibly it also knows if there were folders inside of it, what kind of files. It just gets some sense of where things are. Now, as I mentioned to you at the bottom, just pay attention. It shows that you are currently using, or not you, the Gemini CLI is using the 2.5 Pro module. Now, just some clarification on this, that when you use your personal account, or for example, let's say if you do a /auth over here, we'll come to some of the / commands. If you just do a /auth over here, you see there are 4 ways in which you can authenticate or identify which account Gemini CLI should be using. Don't mess around right now with any of the steps. Just do an escape. If you don't understand it, you can go back to where you were. So I'm going to do a /auth again, and you will see that when you're on Cloud Shell, it's automatically using the current user credentials. Or if you wanted to use on your machine your personal account, you could have chosen the first option, which is login with Google. Third and fourth give you some extra quota. So 1 and 2 are like literally free, but they will be governed by certain kind of free quota that's available for Gemini CLI. It's quite a generous quota, so we should not see any problem. However, just to be transparent, the free quota gives you some kind of a percentage to use the 2.5 Pro, and the rest of it falls back to a 2.5 flash model of Gemini. So just keep that thing in mind that at times it may tell you that you run out of some quota limits for 2.5 Pro. Don't worry, it will just fall back to 2.5 flash. You give your command again and it continues to function, right? So that's there. For those of you later on who want to just get more quota and things of that nature, you are free to use options 3 and 4, but we'll not currently worry about it. If you have used AI Studio or use the Gemini API, you would have got the key for it. So that's the one you have to set in your environment. Similarly, if you're using Google Cloud Vertex AI, you could specify your cloud project and the location. So those who are familiar with that can use it. But for now, we're going to go with the default Cloud Shell Gemini CLI, which uses the current user credentials itself, the account which you have logged in with. So just escape, don't do anything over here. Okay, so that's a bit of what step 3 was telling, that if you were going to install it on your own machine, it would have asked you which which option you want for authentication. Here you don't see the Cloud Shell one because this typically when you install it outside, but by default Cloud Shell is the other option you'll get if you're running this on Cloud Shell. Now there is also a theme thing. You can just do a /theme, for example, and it brings up a particular theme that you would like. So I'm not going to mess with this theme, otherwise you might just see some other colors and things like that. So just come escape at any point in time. You want to get out of something that you've just kind of stumbled into, just do an escape. If not once, twice, do something. If not, Control C should be your other friend, and then again come back to Gemini CLI. But over time, you'll get used to it. Remember, you can always do an up-down arrow in case you're familiar with terminal usage. All of these things are pretty much supported over here. Yeah. So going back to now the next step, which is just how do we start configuring a few of these things, right? So what I'm going to do is, just to make it easier, I'm just going to go to my terminal here where Gemini is running. I'm also going to open an editor so that you can see some of the settings file in a much more easier fashion. So just if you are using this for the first time, keep in mind we've got a way we can toggle between the terminal, and you'll also see a button here called the editor. So editor is similar to a VS Code like environment. So you can keep toggling between the two. And then if you feel you would like to use an editor, feel free to use that to modify some files. So what I'm going to do is just close all of these things, and I'm going to just add a few folders to the workspace here so that it's easier than to see this. So first thing I'm going to add is in my home, you will find, or in your home folder also, you will find a folder called .gemini. So I'm just going to add it. These things will become a bit clearer once we see later on sections. I'm also going to add the Gemini CLI projects so that it's easier to see what all files are getting modified. So Gemini CLI projects, I'm going to add this. If you're familiar with the terminal, you prefer to use that, that's completely fine too. Here is just easier to explain. So basically if you see my terminal, I'm in the Gemini CLI projects over here. And the same thing, I've kind of opened it up for our own information. Now, the first thing that you can do, or let me step back a bit, you can customize Gemini CLI in multiple ways. You can either do it via some of the settings files, or you can do it via custom commands, Gemini MV. We'll come to all of that. But certain things you can configure in some kind of a global fashion in a file called, this is called settings.json. If you see this step 4. So basically what we are saying is that there is a file called settings.json. It can be there in multiple places, but the one we are concerned about right now is in the home folder .gemini and settings.json. Of course, you can have it in your own subfolders It can override any settings also and things like that. But for now, we'll just associate ourselves with pretty much this home folder .gemini. So which is what I'm showing you over here. It's in the home folder and Gemini folder, and inside of that there is a settings.json. So I'll just show you the one. I've just created some other files, but just so that I don't unwittingly expose my API keys. You can see that I've got a few things in the settings.json file. Now, you may not have all of these entries. You might also have a theme selected, or you might, in this case, see the third option which we selected, which was the auth type, is set over here. So you may not see all of the settings which you're seeing right now on your screen. You might, as the code lab says, when you go there, you might see some theme, or you might see what your authentication type has been selected. So basically, there are various settings that one can do. We don't necessarily need to go through each of the settings, but just be aware. There's documentation for it. If you want to see various kinds of settings, we will get there. We'll configure MCP servers and other things in here, so you'll know in some time. But for now, this is one place you need to remember, the .gemini folder in your home directory, which will have the settings file. So let's move at least to our first, maybe some of you have already started to use it. But basically, let's begin our interaction with Gemini CLI and see how it goes. So it says, let's get started. You can give a first query, which is here, but feel free to give any query that you like to. So I'm going to go back to my terminal here. By the way, there's a /clear command. I will come to some of the commands. So I'm just going to put this quote out, this prompt out here. Feel free to try out any other prompts also. So let's see what happens here. Now, pay attention to what happened, right? So give me a famous quote on AI and who said that, right? Now, you would expect how this prompt would get sort of serviced by the Gemini CLI, right? So some interesting things have happened if you go to see. It did not just go and ask the model, hey, just tell me, if you got some codes, just give it to me. It could have done that also. But in this case, it's done something interesting. It's actually used something called Google Search. This is actually a tool. We'll come to some of the built-in tools in Gemini CLI. So it's actually gone and invoked one of the tools and said, why don't you just search for what the user has requested? It's got back some results. And then this is the output that it has given us over here, right? So again, you can just say anything that you want, but give it write some code to do this, whatever you want. You can try it out, but we'll come to that in a while. So just be with me. So this is how you primarily interact. You can simply, give the prompt, and it's going to come back either directly with the answer, or it may use some inbuilt tools, or it may use some MCP servers, or it may even use some other tools which you've kind of exposed in some way or the other, right? So it's a typical way. It's an agentic software. So this agent has got a brain, which is the model. The agent has got some memory, which is, as you're typing all of these things, there is stuff that's going on. So all your questions, all your answers, that's the whole conversational history, the memory that's out there. And then agent has also got a third important thing, which is tools. So there are some inbuilt tools Gemini CLI has, or it could be even some external tools that you are providing via some MCP servers and settings, right? So think of it this way. And what you're seeing in this loop is nothing but a constant loop with a human in the loop kind of a pattern that's going on at some places where it may ask you for confirmation or clarification or whatever. Otherwise, it will pretty much go once it has the information. It has enough autonomy to go ahead and do the stuff, right? So that's just how it works, so that we just don't give a prompt and say give an answer. Just try to understand what's going on behind the scenes also, on how it may interpret it. So that's what this step says, that you will notice that a query resulted in a Google search tool that was invoked. It's an inbuilt tool. Again, the next thing it says is, for example, I told you there is a, let's say, an auth command, or I told you there is, let's say, about command, right? So all of these commands are are pretty much there. So what are the commands? If you just do a /help, you will get a ton of commands that come up. Now again, Gemini CLI is being rapidly, worked upon because of its open source nature. So expect a few releases happening, almost on a stable releases happening on a weekly basis, but nightly builds are also going on. But again, on a stable release, expect that as a few weeks may go by, if you've not updated, a few extra commands could appear or could get deprecated. It's quite a fast moving sort of a target. Now, we don't have to necessarily go through all of these. Some of these you may not have all of the commands which you are seeing here, because some of them I have customized, which we'll come to in a while. But you can see that some of these things all you have to do is just do a / and you will see what command you want to do, etc. And then accordingly, do that. Anytime you just don't feel like it, delete this. Or if you're in the middle of something, don't like it, just do an escape also or come back to it, right? All of that is straightforward. So again, variety of commands are there. You can always quit or double control C and all that. Now, as and when we get to the right commands, we will cover it in the later on section. So don't worry about it. Now, command line parameters, right, is another way you can customize the way Gemini will start behaving. But at the moment, what you've done, we've already launched Gemini and it's already there in the terminal waiting for you. So we did not provide any command line parameters. So let's just quit this so that we can actually see that if we had to launch Gemini CLI from the command line, and if we just do a help over here, it will show you the various command line parameters that you could use. So for example, of course, there are some ways you can use it, but you can see, you can change the model, you can give a prompt directly, or you can, there is a way by which you can even do checkpointing, like a Git-like thing. So in case you, in a long session, modify a lot of files, it creates checkpoints whenever some kind of updates happen. In case there's a problem, you can always go back to something. Now, what we can do is, and let's see what the code lab suggests, is I told you earlier, right? For example, that let's just launch Gemini, just like that, right? Now, when we do that, and provided you have a good enough quota still remaining for your free thing, you will notice that at the bottom, it's still telling me that I'm using 2.5 Pro. Now, can I change the model that it uses while I'm in the terminal? The answer, to the best of my knowledge right now, is a no. So the way you do that is either you specify the model in the command line parameters or also in the settings.json that we covered. So if you see the Gemini help here, it says that you can specify the model, and that is exactly what this step 6 where we are right now tells you, that you can actually give this command to switch to the Flash model. Now again, if you're using some of your paid accounts to do this, remember, certain kinds of tasks Flash is good enough, and it's also a very low cost model. So you might want to do certain things, or in certain projects or certain tasks, you want to probably switch to the Flash model. So if I start Gemini in this fashion, which you see, which is I specify the model and 2.5 Flash, it's going to come up, and then at the bottom there you will see that it's switched to the Flash model. So that is how it pretty much does its stuff. Now what we'll do is let's just quit for now so that we can see some other things. So this is basically, it was telling you where you do the Flash model, and you should be able to see that also over here. Now, non-interactive mode. Let's go back to this. When I'm actually doing Gemini and I come out over here, right? It's launching the terminal, and now it's waiting for you. So basically, it's an interface. Now, one of the things which is very easy to misunderstand when it comes to Gemini CLI is, hey, this looks like a sort of a tool that's running always in the terminal. It's interactive. What if I wanted to utilize this Gemini CLI to basically do something in an autonomous fashion or a non-interactive mode? That means, can I just maybe give a command and maybe schedule it at 12 a.m. to run every day? Or can I put something in my CI/CD, pipelines to use Gemini CLI to maybe do some security analysis on a source code before it even goes ahead and does a deployment. But to do that, obviously you can't have a terminal waiting for someone to press a key to say, yeah, please go ahead. Okay, right? So you need things to run in an autonomous fashion. And this, what you're seeing right now on the screen, is non-autonomous or an interactive mode or terminal, whatever you want to call it, right? So the way you want to do that is, if I just do a Gemini help over here, you will see that there is a there are, okay, so if you see this one, either dash p or dash dash prompt. So again, positional prompt can be used and all that stuff. But what the lab says, right, which is you simply give the prompt at the command line this way. So what happens when we do something like this? So I'll just clear this. So basically, I'm not just launching Gemini. I'm just saying use this prompt. And when I do that, it's not going to launch that interactive terminal. Simply go ahead, do some authentication, do whatever work it has to validate you're the right person, and then simply, execute or service that prompt. So you will find that the answer comes out and you can directly see the output on the console itself. So this way you can use, so here you go. It's got the answer and it's just telling you the answer directly here itself. You're not in a terminal as such. So these are the ways by which you can actually run a command. You can pipe it to something and then just give it to Gemini also to analyze, and its output can be piped now to the next tool also. So you can actually be at the command line if you're comfortable doing that way. You have some shell scripts or any kind of other scripts. You can integrate Gemini in a very neat fashion, use the result that it's got, and then do the rest of your work. So that's the non-interactive mode over here, where it can just run on its own. Now, but remember one thing, as it mentions, that there is no scope to continue this conversation with follow-up questions. So it's not like the interactive terminal where the context is mentioned and you can just say, okay, so what were you telling me before, right? And it would still try to answer. But in this mode, non-interactive, you are pretty much the master of whatever context you pass to it. So if the prompt is big enough, by the way, if the Gemini model, it's quite a large context model. So if you can give all your context over here to service your prompt, it should be able to do its work. So going to the next one, which is built-in tools. Now, we've already seen a Google search tool, but let's launch.
Sorry to interrupt. Can we take a quick checkpoint here? Can we ask if everyone has been able to follow? Show of thumbs. So far, so good. Show of thumbs. You can react now. I just enabled it for the checkpoint, and we'll continue to use it through the rest of the session. Yeah. Okay. Good. Lot of thumbs. Please stop sending crabs. Please, that distracts a lot of attendees, and we've got that feedback in the past. I know you're very enthusiastic about this, and we find it amusing too. But Roman has a comment. Go ahead, Roman.
No, I'm just trying to give an emoji. That's all.
Okay, continue, Roman. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we are on step 7 here, which is built-in tools. Now, again, we're not come still to some of the external tools or MCP servers which you may configure right now. But there are several inbuilt tools that Gemini comes with. So for example, it says if you invoke a /tools, which we'll do now, it will show you a list of tools which you're seeing over here. So there are several of them. And there is something you will notice over here if you just go through all of these, which is that several have got to do with reading a file, reading a folder, reading many files, then, writing to a file, doing some shell stuff, searching, editing, right? So primarily keep in mind that as you give commands to maybe write code or read code or, generate something or delete something or do something, typically it's working outside of your system. It will deal with files, it needs to write to it, probably it needs the shell command to even invoke some of the tools, etc. So these are the inbuilt tools that are already there. There are a few which are interesting also separately, which you saw working, which is Google search. So you can literally do Google search from within this itself. You can also be very specific. You can say use Google search tool to answer this query, or you can just say search for this and it will go and get the details. Similarly, web fetch is another interesting one by which you can do some serious automation. You can literally say, go ahead, look at this RSS feed or take this article, fetch the content, and then maybe summarize it for me in some way or the other, right? So it pretty much does all of this. So let's see what examples are there over here. So obviously, it's first telling you there are slash tools and some of them are there. Now,
Rohit,
yeah,
just a thought. There are some folks who are not able to see the .gemini folder. I think we skipped the step where you were mentioning how that folder is created. We create
okay,
also this. Just
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's critical for this step. I know. So I wanted to.
Okay, so let me get out into the terminal. So I am right now in my terminal, no Gemini, nothing. Now you will notice that if you do a CD, this is a Linux system, you will be going back to your home folder. So if you do a present working directory on this, you will be into slash home instead of GCP Express. You will see your Gmail personal account ID. So that's your home folder in which you are. Now, if you do an ls on this folder, obviously you might see several files, but you will see some folder here, right, which is the .gemini folder. This should be created for you in any case. It's a directory or a folder. How is it a directory? You can just go here, Linux concepts. Even if you don't know, that's okay. So it's a directory, and we can literally do a CD into that Gemini folder. So I'm currently now in my home folder .gemini. And if I do an ls, you may not have much things. You may just have a settings.json. Or for example, as I showed you a demo settings one. So if you just do a cat on your settings.json, you'll be able to see whatever entries are there for your settings file. So this is a file which you may want to modify. Now, if you are a Vim fan or a Nano fan, try to do that. So you can always do a thing from here and see your file, but then you need to come out of it, which is the biggest challenge. So you need to know that. Or what I showed you was the toggle mode, that you're in the terminal, but you can always open the editor. And if you open the editor, it may take some time for it to launch on your machine, but it's VS Code basically. And in that, what I've done is I've simply added a folder, which is I've added that Gemini folder, which you see over here, right? So it's the same settings.file that I'm trying to show you. So I just showed you in the UI here so that it becomes easier for you to follow the tutorial. But otherwise, if you want to just make sure that where it is on your machine, just go to the terminal, do a CD so you're always in your home folder, and do a go into a .gemini folder, and there you are, right? So you should be able to see all whatever files that you will eventually create. You might just have right now a settings.json. Looks okay so far? Show of hands for those of you who are confused what's going on. Yeah. And eventually you'll get used to it because you have to deal with this file if you have to work with Gemini CLI. All right. So let's do that. Well, again, sorry. So again, see, I could have launched from this .gemini, but then that's not the right place, good place to do it. So I'm just going to go back to my home folder, and I've created a Gemini CLI projects, and I'll do something different. I'll actually, within this, I'll create something called, let's say, tools project, so that I'm inside of the tools project, very specific folder, and I'm launching Gemini from there. So when I do that, the folder that will be shown to you down, as you can see now, is the tools project. So anything like writing to a file, etc., it will always be from that folder. It can't just go outside of that domain and try to write to a root folder or something like that. It's not going to work out, right? So those things are protected. So coming back to these tools, right? Now, look at the scenario here that is described that says that, of course, it says, let's use a prompt that will make Gemini choose one of the inbuilt tools. So multiple things happening here. I'll just copy this and then we'll see what happens. So when I'm putting this prompt that says search for the latest headlines today in the world or whatever, you can replace it with any other topic of interest and save them in a file named this. Now, let me again escape from here. Sorry, where am I? Here. Okay, so maybe I don't want this. And why is the escape? Okay, it's not. So I'm just going to show you first the tool so that now you can tell me that when this search query is given or this prompt is given, it needs to now service this prompt. So there's actually a search going on. And then after it searches something, probably some summarization may happen, but you're also telling it to then save it. So in short, you should expect that 2 or 3 tools should get launched here. So one should be the Google search tool, then it should be the write file tool, right? To write this particular one. Where will it write? It will write it in this tools project folder. Will it just write? Will it ask for permission? Let's check out what happens. And that's exactly what that step in the code lab does. So I'm going to just launch this. So let's go on. So it says now I will search, and notice now it's saying I'm going to use the Google search tool to get that data. So obviously it goes now fetches results from Google search. It's composing something. You can have your prompt that even says formatted in this way, that way. So now it says I've saved the finance headlines. But see, it's like it's doing something. Probably at times it doesn't get a path. Let it do its work. Don't worry. It will recover from that. So it says I will now save the finance headlines in this. But see, it's not written it because it's a write file. It modifies something on your system, which means the tool will ask for your permission. So before it can even write this summary that it got from somewhere on the web, it says, can I apply this change? Yes, allow once, always, or no. If you just do an escape, no, it won't write it. If you do allow once, it will, anytime there's a write file tool being called, it will always ask you for permission. To make it easier, sometimes in a session, you can say allow always, so it just goes smoothly. In our case, I'll just do allow once. So when this happens, it says now confirming so and so, and it'll read whatever, it just successfully written the file and says task has been done. Now, the question is, did it write the file? How do we know? Do I need to go back to the terminal, etc.? We'll come to that. But for example, if you do an at over here, you will see that the file is already there, right? So I can actually say read the contents of at, and I'll see the, file that's already there. I can select it. And when I do that, now it will call the read file tool because that's what it's going to be reading now next. And then it will show you that data. And things like read and all, it may not need permission. So it will just go ahead and do it. But if for those which are extremely sensitive ones, you can opt to even protect some of those tools. So let it do what it has to. We'll come to this in a while. It should have ideally done quite fast. I don't know what loop it's gone into, but these things can happen. So what we've done here is when we fired this search, that's what the lab says. It's done a Google search. Then it's asked for your permission to write the file. Then it's saved the file into this, and same thing, read the contents of so and so. Ideally, a read file should get generated. So it's got into read many files. Go ahead, give me the output. Okay. Sometimes if it's gone in a loop, possible, some of you may have even got the output. Maybe something is odd on me. When I see something of this nature, I just escape, I come out of it, and maybe I try to give a command again. If not, I'll show you some other tricks also I do to not get out of the Gemini CLI, terminal. So we'll just give it one more try here. Ideally, it should do it. How many of you have been able to do a read and at, and it came up with the content? Any show of hands? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it works for me now. So it's read the content and it's given me the stuff and everything. All is well with the world, right? So we'll go to the next step. Now, that is the trick I was telling you. One of the ways also is that, hey, it's written a file. So ideally, it should be there somewhere in my system or in that folder. So there is a shell mode with this step describes, step number 8. So if you that is invoked as it says by just typing the exclamation mark. So you toggle between it. So if you do a exclamation, you see that the shell mode has got enabled. and you'll also see that, it's got a different kind of thing. So now I can actually say, hey, what's my present working folder? Hey, what are the files that are present? Hey, can I do a cat, of this file? And it'll execute all of these commands, right? So you don't have to necessarily quit the terminal, go back, quit CLI, go back to a terminal, come back into this. You can just toggle between this. So if I do an escape, I've gone back to the prompt mode. Anytime I want to do it, I can do a shell and I'm back to where it was, right? So that's the shell mode for you, where you can pretty much even execute any of your other commands also, which you may have got on your system. Next, okay, just a time check. We still have quite a few things to do. So, Abhi, we are okay to go ahead, right? For go on for some more time. How does
Yes.
that look?
Yes, Roman.
Okay, all right. So now come a few fun things, which is we've kind of just touched the surface so far, which is we've got Gemini working, some settings, inbuilt tools. We've ran a few commands. We've seen how the tools get executed. We've seen some permission possibly coming up or not, etc. But there are, it's kind of limited because we've so far seen only its inbuilt tools and the way the model might behave. So in steps 9, 10, and 11, right, are basically ways by which you can truly customize Gemini CLI. Now, you may not need to use all three of these. You might just prefer that maybe I'm enough right now. I just need to use some MCP servers which give me the functionality and I'm good. Or you may write your own custom command. So what I'm trying to highlight is that steps 9, 10, and 11 contain three particular ways by which you can customize Gemini CLI, and each one of it has its own, advantage. So you'll know as you're kind of doing it that, okay, here I didn't have to write any code. I just would give some English-like instructions, and it created a nice command for me, and it could do it, right? So you'll see the differences and where it could be more effective. But we'll start with the first one, which is configuring model context protocol servers. Now, while this is not going to be a tutorial on MCP servers, keep in mind that MCP is all over the place, and basically think of it as a way by which the AI tools can help their models connect to real world data, outside data. So for example, if you've got your own data in a database, possibly you could write an MCP server that knows how to talk to it, but then in a standard fashion, these agents can talk to that MCP server and get back, the responses. So there are MCP servers for pretty much anything nowadays. Probably thousands and thousands of them are available. But primarily, for example, think of it this way. I want to be in Gemini and I want to, let's say, push my code to GitHub. Just look at this challenge that I'm giving you. I don't want you to, know anything about GitHub, all the commands, or maybe some command line tool that may be there. All I'm saying is you need to push your code to GitHub, but which means Gemini CLI on its own cannot do that, right? It may give you some instructions, but it may not be able to do it for you. But it may be able to do that if you enhance it with some MCP servers. In this case, maybe the MCP server of GitHub. Similarly, you have something like, for example, say Slack or Discord or any other system, right? And you may say, hey, I want to send a message directly from my Gemini CLI to Slack. But for that, you will need some kind of a layer that knows how to talk to Slack, and which your AI agent, which is Gemini CLI, can also talk to in a standard way. So that's where, again, maybe an MCP server for Slack, if it is there or if someone has written, it can do that hard work for you. All we need to do, and which is what this step 9 indicates or describes, is how you can configure, right? So that's what we are talking about. It supports configuring MCP servers, and then it just uses them, which you will see in a while later on as we do some of these exercises. So we'll just look at first this command, which is an inbuilt one, which is /mcp. So let me do a /clear here. And if you do a /mcp, you may find different subcommands. So there's a list and north and a refresh. But if you just do an MCP default, You will find in your case, maybe, or in this code labs case, it might say no MCP servers are configured. But in my case, obviously, it's telling you that, hey, looks like you got, one GitHub MCP server that's configured. And if you go down, there is a Context 7 MCP server that's also configured. And this Context 7 MCP server, for example, has these two tools. But GitHub, most of you are familiar. You can see it's got 90 plus tools over here. And almost all kinds of things. Add a comment to an issue, or fork a repository, or get some commit details, or get the latest release, or things like that. So these are various tools. Now, how it selects which tool when it asks for permission, it functions in the same way as you saw the inbuilt tools once you have set up your MCP server. So this stuff here, it just shows you how do you configure it. So again, as I told you, we had earlier just mentioned about this settings.json file, right? So in this file, there is an MCP servers kind of a block. Obviously, if I go to the documentation here that's linked in the lab, you will see exactly some details. How do you define it? What sort of sample configurations are possible, etc. So feel free to go through that documentation whenever you need. But this just gives you at a high level that you can configure one or more MCP servers. So you just create a block called MCP servers, and inside that are one or more, of course, with an object. And what that object right now, it's empty, these parameters, but we will be adding that. So you have to say whether it's a MCP server that's running somewhere and you can have the HTTP URL, or it's a standard input output. These are protocols MCP server supports. Don't worry too much about it right now. For most use cases, if you're using external ones, chances are they already give you a block which says, hey, this is the HTTP URL to connect to, or this is the what you call command to launch, etc., etc. So for example, if I just go to GitHub MCP server on the web, right? So you can see that, hey, GitHub's got an official MCP server. And if you go to that page, if you just go down somewhere, immediately you will find, hey, if you want to install it, look, this is the way you, of course, Gemini CLI ideally should be there, but it's not. That's a different thing. But it gives you that, okay, if it's type HTTP, what should be the URL, what kind of stuff you may need, etc., etc. So I have not come up with this old definition. It's just a standard way you find in most IDEs. And remember, once you have an MCP server, you could pretty much integrate into any IDE, AI IDE that supports IDE or terminal or agent, whatever you want to call, that supports MCP server. So in this case, Gemini CLI supports MCP server, and I'll show you the GitHub MCP server. The link and all you want to. Obviously, you also need a personal access token, so you need to generate that first. So how do you generate? We've given the link. You can do that. Even if you don't do it right now, it's fine. But if you've done that, that's good enough. So once you have your token, this is really the block that you need to put. So you can see, as you mentioned, MCP servers, which one? The first one which we are configuring, which is GitHub. It says that what's the HTTP URL. This one, no magic. It's actually got from the documentation here, which you see, right? And in the authorization header, headers, there's an authorization, parameter which you need to provide, which will be your personal access token. So you need to put that, and that's pretty much what it is. So if you see my system, when I go back to it again, let's push these a bit away. Okay, so we are here, and if I go back to my editor, you can see in my settings, I've actually got two servers, the MCP server, and I've got the context server. That's why you are actually seeing the two servers which are set up for me. But this is how I've configured it. Obviously, in your case, same way, except you will just configure, put your personal access token here. At times, if it's not an HTTP URL, it could be a command. And in this case, it's a node package. You're not installing it, you're just dynamically running it every now and then. But again, each of the MCP servers, if you go, it'll give you, what the command is. In case you have a lot of time on your hands, and if you're not getting sleep, go to awesome MCP servers, and you will find that there are MCP servers for I don't know. I mean, it'll probably take 5 minutes to even scroll through the whole list that's there. So some fun stuff is there. So you can integrate any of these inside this, and each one of them will have their the configuration which you need to put, like how it's shown over here. So in my case, I've already got this going. That's why when I do a slash MCP list, I do see that there's context 7, that first one, and then there is the GitHub one that you see over here. Anytime you update your settings, you don't need to necessarily quit and come out of it. You can just be here and also do a refresh. This will again go and see if anything new has got added, and it will probably restart anyone that's needed. But again, it loads and everything is back to square one. There are also some nifty commands, like if I, not in the code lab, but for example, if you do Gemini MCP list, you will find that it just looks at your, it's from the command line just to validate a few settings are working or not. So everything is good. I just come back to where it was. My 2 MCP servers is connecting to it. This is in 0.4 version, a new, that is usability things that it tells you're connecting to it. If there's an error, don't worry, you'll see an error. It'll tell you to see the details of the error, things like that. Now, so to come back to that, we already got this. And for example, if I say, who am I on GitHub, right? Now, this should result in the MCP server being picked up, as you can see, and it is picking up the get me tool. Obviously, sometimes you may also need to have some other tools like the GH helper or a Git or whatever to be running on your system. So keep in mind that Gemini CLI on its own can't invoke tools and just do some magic. It'll either depend on some credentials that are going from here or some tools that are running on your system and accordingly invoke it. So if you just say yes for this, it's actually gone ahead, made the call, and it's got back some details about my GitHub profile and whatever details that are there. So this is how it goes, and we'll see later on as it uses some more of these, right? So that's pretty much on the, it's the same thing here. Who am I? It picks up the right tool, etc. You can do all kinds of things. For example, if I say, what repositories do I have, right? So this should involve again the GitHub MCP server, but it should pick up the right tool. See, for example, it's picked up this search repositories tool. Where were these tools? If you just scroll, as I told you, there was 90 plus tools right over here. So if you go to starting from S, you can see there's a search repository tools, which it's picked up. I can just say yes, and then it will make that call and probably give me different repositories that are out there, right? Fair enough. It's a partial list. Now you can even say, for example, as the lab says that, hey, describe this, describe that. All of those things are perfectly possible. The next step anyway shows another MCP server, not necessarily important for this code lab, but this shows you how you can configure it and what it can help you do. So similarly, feel free to use any of these MCP servers mentioned, Firebase. There's even generating images, videos right within that. Workspace stuff, for example, you can say, like, get that finance data that we got and create a presentation. It's possible to do that also. So just look at it. It's quite a neat way by which you can really get powerful within the client itself. So next way of
Roman, just one point before we move on to the next step. Folks, just a checkpoint for submission of results. Roman, if you can go to step 7 of the code lab, Gemini CLI inbuilt tools. So you have to submit the first screenshot of step 7. Scroll up, Roman, the one where you see available Gemini CLI tools on top. Yeah, the whole screenshot. That whole screenshot is what you need to submit the result as. Typically, you would have already got this if you had followed all of Roman's steps. So since you showed thumbs up at, I specifically asked around this step if you're able to follow, and I got a lot of thumbs up around that step as well. So I assume that you have completed this step. And because Gemini CLI is intuitive in a way, you can ask questions related to your projects and whatever you want to accomplish. So we are not asking you to share screenshots of what you have. To make it easy for you and simpler for you in this season, The screenshots of the results are already available in the code lab. Since you're listening in, you are getting this information firsthand. So that's why you're getting to know. Submit this first screenshot of step 7, Gemini CLI inbuilt tools. You will also receive this information in your email tomorrow as well, along with the recording of this session. So the last two steps are we're almost complete, almost done with today's session. So I'll hand it over to Roman, but just know that the first screenshot that is on Roman's screen right now, that is in step 7. That is what you need to submit in your result submission tool. I'll share the link for the tool and other things in the chat and also in your email. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so we're going to step 10 now, which is we've seen how we could customize it with MCP servers, but this is also now a way by which you can specify certain kinds of rules to Gemini. So for example, if you prefer a specific language, a programming language, so when you ask Gemini CLI to generate code, you can say, hey, always remember, this is the framework, this is the programming language that I prefer to use. Sometimes you may even say, hey, don't generate code, just be in planning mode, what it says, right? Just tell me how you're going to be approaching this task. Show me the steps. Let's just deliberate over that. And then maybe you might want to tell it to generate, but you don't want it to just go ahead and do things on its own. So all of these things, right? There is a file called Gemini.md, and this is where you may actually write all of your rules. Now, again, there is a certain hierarchy in which it loads it. Don't worry about this right now. We will straight away jump to what it may look like, and then we'll see where it's placed, and then accordingly what the commands are. So just follow as I'm going along. So what does it look like, right? So again, this is a sample from the official documentation itself. It's a simple markdown file. And again, there are no rules on how to write it, except you will be as specific as possible, as detailed, then is good. So for example, you can see there are some general instructions. This is obviously someone who is working with TypeScript. So that's why they have got very specific things, maybe which are specific to TypeScript, JavaScript, and any other tools packages around it. The versions are being mentioned. Coding style is being mentioned for 2 spaces. So when it generates accordingly, it will use some of these rules. So in case you got your coding style guides, etc., which many organizations do, this is a great place by which you can, actually go ahead and put those over here, even dependencies, etc., etc. Now, so this is one file. Now, as I told you, right, not necessarily everything is to do with coding itself, but look at how this now Gemini file is, which is that we want to say, hey, always be just in plan mode. So it says that, you are so-and-so, you're an expert, you're always in plan mode, and your sole, purpose is to research, analyze, and create. You must operate strictly in read-only capacity. So you can try giving all of these instructions too. So here you can clearly say that what are the core principles. Steps are please acknowledge, please reason out first, please create the plan, and then present it for approval. Things like that. So you can have all of these things also. So again, same way in your home and .gemini, which we have seen, you can simply put a Gemini.md file, and in which you can put your instructions. Similarly, there's another sample shown here, which is the explain mode. So like plan mode, there is explain mode, and it says, what could be to act like a senior engineer, understand, investigate code base, and present a clear step-by-step plan. So no modifications, right? Or no implementation, things like that. So you'll find many such Gemini MDs on the web. Please go ahead and see which ones you might want to start, and then modify them accordingly. In our case here, I'm going to go back to, let's always authorize. Okay, so I'm going to go to the editor, so it's a bit easier for you to see. And I'm in the .gemini, the home.gemini. And you can see I don't have a Gemini.md file. It looks for that name only. So I've just renamed it in a different way so that I can reuse it. So I'm just going to go here and just maybe rename this one to the actual Gemini.md. In your case, you may not have these files. This is just for my demo purposes. So now this Gemini.md has the plan mode, as you can see over here. Now, will it take effect? How does it happen? So for that, we again go back here, and we can just quit out from here. And when I do now or when I launch Gemini from wherever, because see, you could be anywhere. There could be a Gemini.md even in a .gemini of this tools project. But in our case, we have it in the home folder, so it will take that too. So when we launch Gemini now, of course, it connects to our two MCP servers. But observe what it did now. Now it says it's using this Gemini, one Gemini MD file. Now, what has it read? If there were many files, you would be confused. So there's a command called memory. And memory you can add, you can refresh also, or you can show. So when you do a show, see that it's actually said, I have picked up your context from so and so, and this is the rules that you're telling me to follow. At any point in time, I can even add to it. So for example, I can say /memory and add, and I can say, remember to say thank me after each command. Something silly as that, right? So it says I'm going to modify that particular file. Yes, yes, please go ahead. Now, what has it done? Memory has been refreshed here. So if I just go back to my editor here, you will find that, see, towards the end, it's added it already, correct? So, sorry, here, and I go back. So that's how you manage this kind of a memory. I can just quit if you want, or you can do a Gemini. It loads that up. Of course, it had refreshed it. There was no need to close and do that. And at this point in time, if you do a memory and a show, you will see that it's got whatever stuff that is there. So even if I say, for example, that plan out and event management site, right? So what does it do? So you'll find that it behaves differently in a sense, the kind of output. So it's saying now it's developing a plan. It'll just give you, see the details. Let's see, I'm in plan mode. And sorry, where are we? And I will create a detail so and so. I will not make any modification. So analysis, then it's giving you a plan that I will do all these things, right? So see, present for approval, I'll present. So you can just say, fair enough. This looks good. Then you can say, now go ahead, create a task list out of it. Then go ahead and say, complete first task, second task, third task. So that's how you typically go ahead and do things. Don't just say generate code. Ideally work with it in this particular manner. So I will just go back and rename this because I just want that I'm back to what I was. So I'm going to go and say, this going to not demo, but this was the plan mode Gemini. So I've just renamed it back. And if I go back to this and if I do a memory refresh, let's see what happens then. No memory content found, as you can see, right? So it's gone. And then if I do a memory show, it says it's currently empty. So which is good enough. Perfect. So that was the step 10, which is in case you want to customize it in your specific way. This is also another way that you can do that. The next one, and again, we covered all of this, adding to the memory, how you could do that further. The next one is also pretty powerful, which is custom/commands. Now, just to refresh, if I go back to my terminal, when I did a slash, there were certain inbuilt commands that were there, right? But you can also see there is something maybe like a plan, then there is something called an explain, then there is something called the capitals, that this prompt tells you more about the capital of a country. How did it get this? You may not see this in your, in your setup, you will not see this command, right? So that is pretty much what this custom commands are about, where you can, if you're typing or giving a prompt again and again, you can literally create your own custom command. So you can say slash capital or slash do this task or slash generate code, whatever it might be, right? But then how do you write these commands? So just to, instead of going through it line by line, I will just show you exactly. So again, in .gemini folder, we go here, there is some folder called commands, okay? And in commands, you find I've got several what you call TOML files, and each TOML file is actually a command. So for example, I could literally say, create a new command called, let's say today's date.toml, okay? And what do I need to do? So ideally, I just have to give a description, which is that this command gives me, you can actually even run your other external tools that you may have. Gives me, say, today's date. And then all you need to do is give a prompt. So which is tuck, 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 okay. And here we'll just say get today's date from one of the, let's say, system tools, or I could have given the tool command here. Let's see how this goes. So I save this, right? Now, everything that you see over here, all of these comments, right? So for example, see joke, tell me a joke on computer programmers. Let's modify this a bit. Then capitals, it says this prompt tells you more about the capital of a country. Prompt is what? Fetch the ones which are passed, details about a capital, which is passed in this special syntax for passing in an argument after that, right? Many other things are all created in this fashion that says, okay, if I want to be a tech editor, then this is a kind of a sample thing to check against the thing. So let's see what happened to our command. So I'll just come out of this and I'll launch Gemini again. And this time when I do a slash, and I said today's date. You see that now the today's date has come up. It gives me today's date. I could just execute it. Let's see how it does. And today is so and so, right? So it just went ahead and did that. Similarly, if you do capitals, then it says, it tells you more about the capitals and let's say New Delhi. So this will now substitute that argument into that prompt. Oh, so actually it's gone and done something else. So ideally I should have told it should do use that particular command or tool. Should ideally have picked up. I don't know why it's gone there, but maybe it's weird. Let's see what the command was, but let's not debug that for the moment. So similarly, summarize. So summarize in a certain way, or tell me this, or explain, right? So I've actually said investigate the code base to answer the following question. So this is the question to be asked, and what are the constraints, and how you want the answer to be presented, etc. You can give all of these, then become your custom commands which you see out here, right? So all of these things which I've got, like a plan, like a explain, or like a summarize, these you may not see because I have configured all of these, which I can then just do. So this is very useful for those folks who are not very code savvy, don't want to write any code, but believe that via their strong prompting skills, they would be able to create such custom commands for everyone, right? So in summary, right, we cover these three things, which is MCP server, Gemini MD, and custom/commands, three ways by which you can actually configure, customize Gemini CLI to the maximum extent that you can. Now, the last thing which we have here, which is use cases. Now over here, you see a ton of use cases, okay, which are like ranging from creating a website, working with GitHub, so from a coding centric, we've got this use case, creates issues. There are also various tasks that you not necessarily to do with code, but if you want to organize files and folders. So for example, you've got images, video, something, we can say create these folders and go through all the files and organize them, accordingly. It can actually do that. Similarly, we've also got things like extracting information from some PDFs or question and answer thing, multimodal support, right? A list of invoice files. So for example, I will quickly show you. I'll just get this prompt. I'm going to go back to this prompt over here. I'm going to quit. I'm going to go to a folder here called invoice tasks. So what are the four things here? I've got actually four invoice image files, and all I want is to extract information from them. And Gemini CLI, because of its dependence on Gemini model, is multimodal in nature. So it can actually process audio, images, all kinds of stuff. So I'll just launch Gemini from here. And I can directly give that prompt that says, in that current folder, it contains some invoice files. Go through all of it, understand what's going on, and extract this in a form of a table, the invoice number, invoice date. So these are random images of invoices which I put. So ideally now it will get to task. It will read the folders that are, the files which are there in a folder, maybe identify them, don't worry, if you see some errors like this, it will recover and get going. So just take it easy. So it reads the image files. Now it's probably going to understand, hey, it's image. Let me do the OCR stuff behind the stuff. And that's it, right? It's got the four uh, invoices and their information shown in the form of a table. Now, I'm going to again quit and I'm going to go to maybe a folder here. Let's just call that folder, okay, a test folder for now. So I'm going to, this is the last use case that I will show. It's probably about 10 minutes or so, bear with me. So I'm going to go to this test folder and I'm going to launch Gemini. And the use case that we are going to be seeing is the one right at the top of this, which is we'll just do a bit of the coding with Gemini to generate something. But remember, this also has some Git involved, GitHub, etc. So just see me do it so you can actually see the power of Gemini CLI, and then you can possibly use that for all kinds of stuff. So again, we're not going to be doing too much like running or testing it. I'm just going to first copy the prompt, show it to you so that you understand what's going on. So I'm just saying, hey, this is actually a prompt. I would like you to generate, as you see in the thing, generate a website for a one-day event filled with talks. There are several talks in a day. It's got one or more speakers for each talk, right? And there's a lunch break. And I would like you to proceed in the following way. Plan out how you would do this. Ask me for any clarification. And once I'm fine with it, generate the code and give me instructions to run and test locally. Don't run it on your own. That's all I'm giving, right? I want to be more in control. So let's go ahead and tell it, please go ahead and do stuff. Now I may just allow all the tools here so that it's a bit faster. But now it goes ahead, it understands if this is a website I need to build, which has one track of talks, etc. So it's saying that, okay, this is the plan. I'll go ahead, Node.js, whatever it is. It's also, could you provide me the event title, and I will use placeholder data for the talks now, which is good. So I'll just say the title is, let's say, code V is as the event name, right, for this one day thing. No other questions. Otherwise, I'll just say the plan looks good. Go ahead. So basically now I'm expecting it to start doing a few things around what it may need. So it's saying I'm going to install certain things. Okay, so npm init, let it do. It's creating this file. It will now start generating the server.js install dependencies. I'm just going to allow most of these tools now in this session, so it's a bit easier. So it will create the server.js file now. I'm going to say allow always for the write file tool. So server.js, I'm not checking quite a few things, though you would check typically. So data.json with some placeholder data. It's constructing something to make a public folder for putting the HTML assets. Go ahead. It's creating the index file, not bad. Then it'll create the style.css, and then it'll create the JavaScript file, also the script.js, right? So let's see what it does next. So it's created all these files, and I'll just wait here for a moment. If you see the open editor, and if I go to my CLI projects under test, you can see it's generating all of these things. It's created the data files. There is some server.js. In public folder, there's an index, the script. All of these things are getting generated peacefully. So where are we? We were on the terminal and it's waiting. Should I generate this? So if we are okay, we can do that. Otherwise, I was going to just ask it for instructions. But if we see our package, I just want to do one quick thing. What is it on port 3000? Ideally, I don't want because something else is running on it. So just see what I'm doing. So you can even see sometimes how you can make changes. So I'll just say all this is good. So, but I'll just say no, don't do anything more. I'll just say update the server.js to run on port, let's say 8080 as a practice. Because 3000 something else is running. So it's going to now read that file. It's going to say, see, I'm going to make this change. Fair enough, go ahead, do it. And then it's going to say, I'm going to run this Node.js server for you. Maybe, let's say, yeah, just go ahead. do it. So once it started, hopefully it displays us a message. If not, I could have said no, and from another terminal, I could have, just started it up also. If maybe if I've got something else running on it, I don't know what all is there. Let me close this one. It's testing some deployment. So not sure what is happening. So what I'll do is I will just either wait for a while, or I'll just, in interest of time, I'll just come out of this. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to another one, which is on Gemini CLI projects. I'm going to go to test, and here can I do a node server.js. So server is listing on port 8080. So I'm just going to go to this preview on port 8080. If all is well, there you go. So I've got the site that is generated in somewhere, and of course by category, it's probably going to, as I type things. So it's working in some way. I don't want to modify too much, though you could keep iterating and doing all kinds of things. Added even that title which I wanted. Did that come up, or okay, it's not come up. Something is gone in a loop. Let's close out this and go back into this particular one. Now, what I can also do is, let's just launch Gemini from here again, test folder. So I think we are looking good on what it did from an initial generation point of view. So what are the next steps that it says? After it's generated all of these things, in this case, it created a different kind of a format, but in our case, it did something else. I'll create a git ignore for this project, which is good once I have to put it in GitHub. So I'm here, I'm doing this. So it's created a git ignore. It says all of this to add. I'll say yes. And then comes the excellent command that says the following. I'll just copy and I'll tell you what's going on. So I'm saying that now I would like to push all of this into a new repository in GitHub account. Remember, I've got the GitHub MCP server also set up, and I would like to name this repository something, right? So I'm just going to go and change this to, say, CV11 event talks app in this repository. Go ahead. So this should do some other things like initiating, first is getting the GitHub, who am I in the first place. Then it should do a sequence of git commands before it, pushes to the repository. So git init, git add, all of this. So first is creating the repository. Let it do that. So it's created the repository, hopefully here. Now, what kind of repository setup? Saying I'll be doing this initial git commands, because otherwise you can't push it out there. So git init it will do, then main, then remote add, then you can see it's doing a git add over here, and also all of this. Let's allow all of these. So it does this. Fair enough. And at the end of it, now it should begin to say, I've done the work and I've pushed your changes to the new repository. Amazing. So I've got this new repository up and running. Let's see that. So here you go. The whole thing is got uploaded or pushed into your repository also from. I didn't even go to the repository to do anything. Now, one thing that you observe is, hey, README file seems to be missing. I need some help on writing that, right? So I can actually say generate a README file for this project. Go ahead. I'm not going to review it too much. I'll just assume what it does is good enough for now. So it says, okay, I'll start by understanding what's going on. So it's now comprehending actually your project files and everything that go into it, creating it. Now it's saying, I want to do all of these things. It's okay. We don't want to necessarily start the server here. So we'll just say no, and we'll just say push this README to the repositories. It should know the context where I'm going to, which repository it was working with. So it's going to go ahead, it's adding the README, the git commit of it, git push of it, and if everything is fine, or it didn't create it. Yes, please. Create. Oh, because I stopped the previous one. Create it and then push the file. Do not start any server. Feel free to do all of these things, right? What you see in the code lab sometimes might not be the exact output you may get. So I'm just saying, okay, I'm writing the file to README. Yes, go ahead. Oh, this was the README commands, and I thought it was going to execute. So anyway, it's doing the git thing. It's being pushed to your repository. Amazing. So let's do a refresh. There you go. It's got the README also created and it's visible over here, right? Not bad. Now comes another thing that I would like to really show to you. But as you go through it, you will see similar things that are going on. Generate the README, so and so. Now, a last one or two things to show you. Let's say that you've got an existing repository which you cloned. In this case, I already have it cloned here in this folder. But I can tell Gemini that, hey, why don't you review my project for, let's say, user experience or from security point of view, whichever area, and just come up with some possible issues that you're seeing and create the issues in GitHub. So for example, I can say that review this project from, let's say, user experience point of view and create the issues and push them to the repository. So this will now go ahead and start even understanding your folders, the files, see what kind of code is there, see if there are some UX concerns in this case that it is missing out. It's creating some initial issues based on that. This is a great way by which you can have a reviewer. So see in this case, it said this code doesn't have a loading indicator, doesn't have a no results found, blah, 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 right? So let it do its, so this way it's also identify certain issues. And now what it will attempt to do, let's see, next, let's go ahead, further improvement. So based on my review, I've identified several areas. Now it's actually creating the issues in GitHub. So I'm just going to say, yes, allow all the tools right now. Yes, allow, yes, okay, the 4 of them, and then all of these, fair enough. So this has gone ahead and now created the issues. So actually, if you go to the GitHub URL, now you see issues are not there. But if I do a refresh, you will see 5 issues got created. And each of those issues with the respective details are put over here. This is a great way by which you can even take your existing repository, try to improve it. Now comes the best thing that's possible, which is, hey, you created the issue. Why don't you go and fix it also and close the issue, right? So we are so lazy nowadays that it's a fair ask from humans to AI agents. So for example, let's say that display a message when no results are found, right? So I will just take this issue and I will say in my this that please review the following issue, fix it and push the changes, close the issue tool. Thanks in advance. Okay. So many things should happen here. It should now see what issue you want to, fix, look at the existing code, see where the changes are possible that it's pointing out now. So it's saying, see, this was the message to be added. So I'll just say, yeah, go ahead, add it. Then it will do a git add, git commit, then the push to it, close the issue, update it, everything. So there you go. It's like, updated the issue, I've fixed it and I've closed it also. So if I go back here to this for a moment, if I just do a refresh here, you will find this issue is now closed and it's also even updated. And if I see the diff, you will see that the diff and other things also have got checked in. The issues have come down to 4. If I go back to my code, you can see that the last one was a fix number 2. So everything is done beautifully, right? So that's precisely what I wanted to show in this whole task. Rest of it are, as I said, non-coding tasks. You can do it at your own convenience later. So that's pretty much what I had in this whole code lab. I'm happy to take questions, but I hope it just gives you a glimpse of what's possible, how you can customize, how you can possibly just make it tuned to the way you want things to be done. Remember, Gemini CLI on its own is nothing much. You will have to add either other tools on your system or MCP servers or customize things in a certain manner. But then it starts becoming a lot more powerful. So hope you had a good time. I'm also happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Roman. Really appreciate your patience going through all the steps. despite the 30-minute credit setup delay that we caused. Thanks everyone for staying with us all this time. We can probably take one or two questions, but we'll just cap at that because we're already at time. So we'll target closing at 10:15 max, right? So one or two questions. I'm going to enable chat questions. One second, I'm just opening that up for you. Okay, you can send messages now to ask questions. We'll take two questions related to the today. Okay, there's one from Krishnendu. There's like three questions that are probably useful. So do you want to take that one?
Okay. Yeah. So I can see the first question that says, can we configure Gemini CLI using Gemini MD per project wise? So I mean, can we have different disjoint use cases? So a global Gemini would be difficult to write and most importantly, maintain. Any suggestions on this? So perfect question, Krishnendu, and absolutely possible. That's pretty much the whole, idea of making sure that you have Gemini MD that's suited to a specific project, because you could move from one project to another. So if I just go back to this Gemini MD for a moment, the documentation for the code lab, you will find that somewhere on top, we have mentioned the loading order. So as you rightly mentioned, you might have a global Gemini.md in which these are instructions that may apply to all your projects. So you might have some minimal things that apply really. Hey, this is the way I want you to do some things, or irrespective of project, you can put some of those things there. But as you rightly mentioned, in specific projects, that's number two here, or subdirectories, you can have your own MD folders. And really the loading format is that it takes precedence over the global context. So as you mentioned, and as is possible by Gemini CLI, you can have Gemini MD files in your specific project folders. They take precedence over a global one in which you may have very minimal stuff that's out there. So that's perfect. Then second question, can we pass multiple arguments in custom command TOML files? So so if I go back to custom slash commands, and there was a thing mentioned here that notice that the prompt contains a special placeholder args. So currently, the way it is working, I don't know in 0.40, which was released as of yesterday, if they've made some improvements there. But at the moment, every single thing that you've got over here, this is basically the information that you put after the prompt. So if you say slash plan is your command name, whatever you put after that goes into the arg. So it could look like custom, or sorry, additional parameters, but it's not exactly that. So you might want to think about how you may want to do something of this nature if you want multiple commands, one output going to another or something. But at the moment, it's basically everything that you type after the prompt or after the command will be identified as args. Now, this could contain spaces, it could be in quotes, it could be anything. It could even be multiple strings which you put in quotes, but everything after that goes inside arg. That's how it is currently designed. And what was the third question? I think it scrolled up quickly.
Is it always necessary to be in a particular folder to give Gemini a better context?
Yeah.
I mean, doing very day-to-day-ish tasks,
Yeah.
like checking whether, does that even matter?
Yeah. So again, if it's just to do with doing a Google search or something like that, it should not matter. It will in fact work from wherever you started also. But you just have to be aware that there could be a scattering of Gemini MD files or whatever it is, all over the place. So if you start from somewhere that is like a root or higher, you might unwittingly add all of those to the context. So I would suggest if you end up in a situation like that, just do a memory show and see where things are. However, if it's got to do with Google search and any other kinds of tasks, you could be anywhere. However, remember, it can't go outside of the current folder from a higher level or at the same level on your system. So if you started from, let's say, a Gemini CLI projects, the add files and other things will always be from that and some folders inside of it. It can't go outside. So that context you may not have. So again, it depends how you want to do it. But remember that when Gemini starts up, also it tries to understand the context. So the clearer you make it or the easier you may make it for it, it's better. Then the context may not get really convoluted. So yeah, very good questions. And again, try these things out. At some point, you will understand, okay, this needs to go in my global this may come in my custom ones. For example, if you're working across multiple, say, software projects, which are in different technology stacks, frameworks, languages, you'll obviously have different folders and different Gemini MDs which may control the code styles in those folders. And all of this stuff can be packaged and also put in code repositories for version control. And now yesterday we announced something called extensions, which is a more standard way in which you can package certain things. Yeah. So good stuff. Good questions.
Thanks, Roman. For folks who have more questions, feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn. Roman Irani, you can search with that name. It's also there in all the LinkedIn posts, socials we've shared. It's also there. I'll also send our LinkedIn links in our email, in your email that you'll get in the morning along with the recording. So feel free to connect with us there. You can ask your questions. And also Roman has a community in outside of this thing as well, Code Vipassana and our meetup group as well. So Roman, if you would like, you can share that here in the chat and feel free folks to join there. Of course, you'll have more one-on-one discussions and community chats over there. And having said that, I saw a lot of questions around what is lab code and how do I get my lab code. So lab code is nothing but a password for your own identification when you're submitting results. How do you create it? You just have to find something unique for yourself and to remember yourself. Don't put in your Aadhaar ID or don't put in your phone number or something like that. Whatever it is that you want to keep, make sure that, because we store lab code in our system, that's why we are not storing email ID and password, because we don't want to store your email ID. We want only your lab codes, which is uniquely identifiable for you. And you can create it, and not for each session or each season. Throughout your journey in Code Vipassana, you have to use only one lab code. Only then you can participate in the gamification. Your certificate will be, you'll get total score. Throughout your journey, whatever you've accomplished, we'll be able to take you through the journey and give you the corresponding badge down the line, futuristically speaking, only if you maintain the same lab code. How can you recover it? Currently, there is only one way. You have to remember what it is. That's all I can say. Because we are not storing your email ID along with your lab code. So it's really hard to find that. If you made it to the leaderboard, I probably know your name and your lab code. So reach out to us. But if you're not in the leaderboard in the last season, then we cannot get your lab code by your email address or something, because we don't store your email ID. All right, so I hope that helps. That clears things up. You have to use the same lab code, try it out and try to submit. If you feel that you have submitted more than 9 code labs in the past or more than 7 code labs in the past and you forgot your lab code, reach out to us. Somehow we'll try to find your lab code by, guesswork with you. So the whole point was to not store your email addresses and anything, any credential in a database. In your sign-up form is different, but your database is different. So if you have your lab code in your sign-up form, which was a field as well, but it's not a mandatory field. But if you stored it there, then we'll be able to recover it. But if not, we won't be able to recover your lab code. You'll have to create a new one and start from the scratch. But either way, reach out to us. If your case is genuine, we'll be able to get your history of submissions and other things. So like I said, if the link to result submission, I'm going to share with you one more time. Just a second. Yeah, here you go. This is the link, my last message here. I've pinned it as well. If for some reason after 3 attempts, it is still not validating a screenshot, then you can always submit via manual intervention. In the same app on top, there will be a request manual intervention button. Once you sign in, go submit via that. That's a form, RSVP form, not Google Forms, RSVP form, which is manual. So you'll submit your result and we'll validate it and we'll approve your score for the credentials. But typically, this we have had more than 95% success with the app itself. So feel free to submit it that way. How to create your lab code? Just how you create your password for anything. Same way. You should go to that app and you should sign up if this is the first time. If it is already, if you've already created lab code in the past seasons, use your sign in option and provide your lab code there. First time, then click the sign up and just enter something that you want to keep as your lab code, but store it somewhere so you remember it. Yeah. Deadline is the last day of the season, which is 25 is the last session for the season. That Monday, that is 29th, 11 p.m. is your last day for result submission. 30th will be releasing your certificates from GDG Cloud Kochi. And if you want to participate in the second level of the gamified suite that we have, which is troubleshooter, you should have already become a lab champion in the last season or in the current season. So when will you be eligible to take the troubleshooter test? Only if your lab code is in the leaderboard, that is a lab champion leaderboard in the past or in this session. So submit the session, attend this whole season. Towards the end of the season, I'll let you know when the final score for the second level will be calculated, and based on that you can submit the troubleshooter quiz. You can only take the troubleshooter quiz based on the sessions because the questions are from the labs that we are going to do this season. It is really fun. You would enjoy taking the troubleshooter quiz. It's already out there. If you're already a lab champion from past seasons, feel free to go ahead and take the quiz already. But if you're not, this is the first time you're going to try it out, you have to score at least 7 labs for you to be able to become a troubleshooter. So that's the catch over there. Yeah. So you will know your submission of lab screenshot is approved after you submit it. Give it a few seconds. It will validate it. It will evaluate your submission and it will say it is approved. And then it will to calculate your score and it will show up on your result screen right away as soon as you see it. But if you submit it via manual intervention, you will get the total score only at the end of the season, which is 26th. Okay. Yeah, this site is secure, so you should be able to submit it. Don't worry about all that. Link for troubleshooter is there in the Code Vipassana site itself. Go ahead. I don't want to confuse with so many links. So go to codevipassana.dev. You should see the troubleshooter link there. Yeah, the result is step 7, first screenshot. Lab code, just go to that app. You will see how to create a lab code. Sign up if you're doing it first time. Sign in if you're already using your existing lab code. Yeah, if you've already submitted more than once, or if you're, already submitted once, and if you're trying to resubmit it, it will give you this error that it's already submitted. That's okay, don't worry. You can submit it via request intervention if you doubt whether or not you've submitted, Atharva. Or go to score and check, Atharva, without submitting the app. Go to the application, log in, and instead of submitting the results, go for check score. So choose the season and select score. You should be able to see whether your score is up to date or not. Yeah, so don't try to submit again and again. Recorded session will be sent tomorrow. All right, folks. Thank you very much. And session number is 1. Yeah. Season number is 11. Session number is 1. It's all in the drop down. You don't have to use your mail ID as lab code. You can type lab code, any lab code you want. Lab code is mandatory. You have to create your own, just like a password for identifying yourself in Code Vipassana's journey. It's your wish if whatever you want to enter in your lab code. Don't enter your email ID, because the whole point of not storing your not using your email ID is so we don't have to store it, because it's a credential. We don't want to save your email ID in our database. That's the point. All right, folks. Thank you so much. We are at time. Really appreciate your support, and look forward to all the instructions in email tomorrow along with a recorded video. Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye, folks. Good night. Thank you so much, Roman. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Roman, you forgot to send the link to your group if you're interested.
I did, I think.
Oh, you did? Okay. Could you pin it? Send it again and pin it so you get folks to join.
Okay, I'm not sure where it went. Let me check.
Unless you're hesitating because of all the emojis and reactions you got in the meetings today.
Oh, no, that's okay. Uh,
I'm also searching for your message. It's just too long. What app? What app? What app? Oh, and you're getting irritated. I understand. Here's the app again. I'm sending. I'm going to pin it as well.
okay, I found one and I should be able to find the other one. Um,
Is this the WhatsApp channel from that
Yeah,
you
the
found?
WhatsApp one also, yeah, pin that because I pinned the Discord one, I think.
Okay, so the Discord one of Roman's community is shared and pinned. I'm pinning the WhatsApp community that Roman's running. Yeah. All right, folks. Thank you so much. Have a great night. And don't forget to join the next session, which is on Monday. We'll focus on building a full stack application and deploying it on Cloud Run. And finally, so it'll be really interesting for you. You'll build a full-fledged search application for e-commerce. Yeah. Thank you so much, folks. Bye.